2-point game. No timeouts. 10 seconds left. Jazz down 2. Hayward across the half court with 7. Drives into traffic. Bounces to the wing. Trey for a 3 right side. It's good! Trey Burke from the right corner buries the 3. 1.6 seconds left. That kid is simply totally awesome. There were no NBA games last night, so we go back to our highlight of our season. Give you the latest of the draft. The coach will look at Durant's shots. Jabari did it. I'm less concerned today after watching more last night. We'll talk all about it on today's edition of Tip Off. Pow. Hello, as I mentioned, this will be my last tip-off for a week. We'll be back with you next Monday, so a week from Monday. So we'll see what major things happen in that time period. I remember when you used to go on vacation for a week in this business, and you'd come back and you'd just read, you'd catch up on everything. I think it'll be, if I were to not read for a week, I think it'd be impossible to catch up on all the great stuff and interesting things that are written in this day and age of the media. There's so many good pieces that are written on a regular basis, but moreover, and so much content, it's almost impossible, both sports and everywhere else. All right, let's run through a few things today. There was not a lot yesterday. I want to continue on one of the conversations we had yesterday. A few things was like, who else is the size of Jabari? So if you go 6'7", Jabari's going to be 6'8", probably 250. Who else is that size? I think he's listed at 6'8", 240, and I think we all kind of know that's not true. So the question will be, he's listed at 6'8", 235. So if we call it 6'8", 245 or something of that nature, you get James Johnson out of Wake Forest, who's bounced around. It was 257. Derek Williams is 6'8", 248. LeBron is 245. DeJuan Summers is 243. Jay Crowder, 241. And Ryan Gomes was 6'7", 248. So he's definitely, 6'8", 240. He's pushing it a little bit on some of the size things. However, after watching, two things happened, I think. As I said yesterday on the podcast, I've only had watched November, December. I hadn't watched January, February, March. Well, I've watched January, February. Duke changed some ways they're using him. And that is nice because it's relieving some of the concerns that I had from yesterday. One of the biggest things that I noticed from him yesterday was that finally he caught the ball mid-block and made a play. Finally we got him mid-block with the basketball, one quick dribble to the rack. That's where he's going to be awesome in the NBA. He's got to learn how to pass out of it. But if Jabari's going to be great in the NBA, the post-up's going to be nice, but it's going to be more 16, 17 feet, as we talked about yesterday. Boom, boom, go. I saw that finally. It's pretty good. And he did not show it at all, at least from the games I watched in Michigan and Arizona early, and then he played a bunch of crappy teams. And then when watching January, February, March, I think I'm at let's see, what have I got? I've watched an NC State game, a North Carolina game, and I got the Virginia championship game I'm still waiting on. I don't think I need to watch the Mercer game. It was a bad one. There's no point. So I feel a little bit better about, what his role in all of this is and who he is. Yesterday, I just was having a hard time seeing things that were NBA caliber. Now, his defense is still a concern in a lot of ways. Paul Pierce might be the comp here, guys. Paul Pierce, who was a Hall of Famer, I mean, that's a huge comp, but 6'6", 230, so you add a little bit of weight and you add a little bit of size. He always played the game a little differently. And so now suddenly you're comping him at Carmelo, you're comping him at Paul Pierce, and then your downside comp is Derek Williams, which I don't think is I don't think there's a drop that much. But let's remember, Derek Williams was number 2 pick of a draft. I mean, he was thought of very highly. It was somewhat unheard of from a lot of people that he would turn out to be the bust that he's been. I don't think that that's what Jabari is. I feel much better now that I've seen some of the things I've seen out of him. Passing still needs to get better, but fine. He hasn't been asked to do a lot of that. But it's interesting who goes number one. If you ask a lot of GMs right now, Jabari's the guy. If you ask a lot of players at the combine, Jabari's the guy. Yet I had back-to-back tweets yesterday came across my timeline. One was if Embiid is completely healthy, he goes number one. And then the next tweet was that there was no way that Embiid was going number one. He was completely off the list of number one, like within back-to-back tweets. So nobody knows. I do think Embiid, if he's healthy, fits Cleveland, right? I mean, they have Kyrie Irving, they re-signed Luol Deng, they have Dion Waiters. If Embiid's good, they're ready to go. Then I would suspect that Jabari ends up in Milwaukee, much to his um, dismay. Andrew Wiggins ends up in Philly. The only question then you get into, from our standpoint, is do you love Andrew Wiggins enough that you try to go? And the reason you love Andrew Wiggins is his first up is unstoppable, and his second jump is unworldly. And so do you suddenly try to offer Philadelphia something where they may actually like a Marcus Smart, or they may like an Aaron Gordon, or they may like a Noah Vonleh enough that if you offer, well, frankly, we don't have. People keep asking me, well, what do we have to offer? Well, let's do that today because it's really not very. Somebody, I got an email from someone who said, hey, I'm trying to do this and that. Can you help me with this explanation? And my answer to them was, no, I really can't. But it's not complicated. So you have to be traded on draft day, you have to be under contract. So therefore, Gordon Hayward, as it can, I do not believe, well, in theory, Gordon Hayward could be traded, I guess, but he would still be a restricted free agent. So nobody is going to do that. So call Gordon non-tradable. Um, you can't trade pending free agents. So therefore, the only players the Jazz have to trade are Enes Kanter at $6 million, Trey Burke at 2.5, Alec Burks at 3.2, Jeremy Evans, who has little to no value, John Lucas, who has little to no value now. John Lucas will have some value, I think, because I thought his contract was non-guaranteed, but I can't tell that from the Hoops Hype site. Rudy Gobert is tradable at 1.1 million. Deontay, Malcolm Thomas, Ian Clark. So let's be honest. We really have Enes Kanter, Trey Burke, Alec Burks, or Rudy Gobert. We only have and Derek Favors. So 5 pieces that you actually could even discuss. Like if Dennis Lindsay picks up the phone to talk to somebody about a trade, those are the pieces. Favors, Cantor, Trey, Alec, Rudy Gobert. And then, frankly, on the lower level, Raul Neto and Ante Tomic are players. They don't have a great value. So we start playing with this. I mean, it just really gets simple. And, does Philadelphia have a belief that Alec Burks or Enes Kanter is really special? Special enough to give up the 3 pick to get the 5? Probably not. Now, the only reason that you get something like that, and you have your draft picks, by the way. You have your 23rd this year. You have your next year's. You have the Warriors in 17. The only other scenario you could have here is if someone like Philadelphia or Orlando actually wants Noah Vonleh, wants Marcus Smart, wants Aaron Gordon instead of Andrew Wiggins or Dante Exum. Okay, so that sentence is probably highly on the unlikely category, but let's say that happens. Then if we have one of those guys, Dante Exum, for example, really high on our list. So let's say Orlando has decided they'd rather have Marcus Smart than Dante Exum, and they know that we like Dante Exum. Well, then they may decide to get us, right? They go trade 5 for 4, get something out of us. We go get Dante Exum. They get the guy they wanted the whole time in Marcus Smart. But if they want one of these top 4 guys, those 4 picks are not getting moved. I think it's almost impossible to think that any of those 4 picks would get moved. Exum is the highest on the bust potential, talking to people, but also people think he could be very Very good. It's an interesting conversation I had yesterday with an NBA scout who basically said to me, I was talking about all the skills, and he just said, stop. The number one thing is, do they play hard? You can't teach it. You either know how to play really, really hard or you don't. It's not going to be a learned skill in the process. It's either in you or not. And you either want to work in the off season or you don't. It's not a you can try to organize a guy's structure and make it, but he's either got to have the internal drive to be great and try to get better, or he doesn't. Before you get into any other skill about the players, you better determine those two items of whether or not they are an elite level worker. It's an interesting question. It's hard to know. How do you know that about a guy like Dante Exum? You know, it's interesting. I've got a spreadsheet I'm building right now where I'm taking skills of players. I was talking to Pelton about this yesterday, where I am, and charting them as elite, NBA, or deficient in certain categories. It's an interesting exercise. The problem with it is trying to figure out the value of shooting. So Aaron Gordon, who I've not watched entirely yet, but if you look at his shooting is deficient. His finishing at the rim is elite. His athleticism is elite. His motor, to me, is elite. His handle for a guy his size is elite. His passing for a guy his size is elite. His defense is, steal numbers are really low. So I'm trying to do this all visually, none of it being objective with numbers. But I would say let's call his defense NBA level. It's not elite. He's very high on the elite scale, right? I mean, he's elite in all of these categories. It's why I currently have my Aaron Gordon man crush. However, he can't shoot. He's deficient. Is deficient as a shooter a non-starter? Watch what's going on in the NBA playoffs. When is Miami good? When they have James Jones and Ray Allen on the floor. It's not because they're good on the defensive end. It's because Ray Allen and James Jones can shoot and you got to guard them. What is happening to the Oklahoma City offense is that you know these other guys aren't going to shoot, right? You know Collison and Perkins, they're not going to shoot. They're not going to score. Cephalosha is a one-dimensional just spot-up shooter. Is that enough? Marcus Smart, I would say elite level energy, elite level size, elite level finishing at the rim. I have to watch him more to know if that's really true. Shooting deficient. What happens with that? Rodney Hood, Duke guy. I haven't watched him a ton, but I would say athleticism, NBA. Wouldn't want to call him deficient. Motor, call it NBA. Toughness, if that's a skill, call it deficient. Shooting, call it elite. Athleticism, call it maybe deficient. I kind of went back there. So my point is, here's a guy who's an elite shooter. Maybe that's better. Maybe a deficient in anything is a significant problem, right? Can you find the guy who's elite in a few things in NBA? And there's always the OS factor, right? Coach told me, look at these guys and figure out which one of them makes you say, oh, if you're the opposing team. You add Jabari Parker, this is why I was talking about this yesterday. You add Jabari Parker's ability to catch at 15 feet, one quick power dribble, get that shoulder on you to the rack and be able to, then you got an OS factor. That's why I want to see that so badly. Does Aaron Gordon OS a game the way Andre Karolinko used to? I think Aaron Gordon's got an Andre Karolinko aspect to him. Latest rumors on the. By the way, Rodney Hood I mentioned. I keep hearing there's no way he's getting to 20. Keep watching Duke. There's just no way. He's going to be 10 to 15. He's good. Coaching. Jaeger's meeting with the owner of Minnesota, who could screw this thing up. Supposedly wants Sam Mitchell. Shaw is there. Keep saying is going to stay in Denver, and New York's a mess. By the way, what does it do about the fact that Phil Jackson couldn't get Steve Kerr? I don't think he's going to get Carmelo. I think the Knicks are. What happens to the Knicks when Carmelo leaves? A few notes on the series as we had a day off. Miami is minus 28 in the 25 minutes that Bosch and Haslam are both in the game together. Minus 28 in the 25 minutes. Bosch is 4 of 20 on uncontested threes. John Schumann had this. In the first 2 rounds, he was 45% on uncontested threes. Somehow Indiana has Bosch off his game. He's, again, got to shoot. OKC connecting on 29% of their three-point shots right now. That's Spurs defense, but you got to be able to shoot. And in the playoffs, teams are shooting 39.6 when Duncan and Split are on the floor and have a defensive rating of 93.4. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. All right, let's go to film study. I probably should do some more coaches. On the coaching front, I don't have a great deal to tell you. It's continuing. It's going on. Talk to Alvin Gentry. Cleveland's going to talk to Alvin Gentry now. All right, this is today's film study is Kevin Durant's shot attempts. I thought this was interesting because you can see how they use Kendrick Perkins early in the game to try to get Durant looks to deal with this guy, Kawhi Leonard. And then as the game goes on, the half goes on, he becomes much more isolation based. So Durant is down here on the baseline, and here's big Kendrick Perkins down screen. Durant comes off it, gets a pretty good look, and hits. Okay, basic pin down play. Obviously, Oklahoma City doesn't run the most exquisite stuff. But look, it's early in the game, and he's really going at it. Here it is again. Perkins has great value here with that big pick. Nice turn. And Thiago Splitter with a great defense help as Durant didn't get up very well on that and blocks the shot. That's worth noting because on that tight curl, Durant now doesn't go to the basket again for the rest of the half. Here he is again, right side, pinned down from Perkins. Durant gets almost looks like an instant replay. This is how they got Durant going early in this game. They're playing, they're half court executing. Here, where's Durant? He's down here on the right side this time. Perkins gets it. They run him off a pick and roll, a little different, and Durant takes kind of an off-balance shot and misses it. That's probably a force early in the game. Far side, pin for Perkins. This time Leonard handles it, so they roll into a pick and roll. It doesn't materialize. Now he's into a one-on-one. Now is where they just don't have a secondary play, and he goes at Tony Parker and misses it. They got the mismatch they wanted, and they didn't get anything out of it. But you can see when that pin down gets covered by Leonard as they've run it for the 5th straight time. Here it is from Steven Adams. Nice curl this time on Danny Green. He hits it. So this is really how early in the game, and look, there's only still 6 minutes into the game. We've only seen the same play 4 or 5 times. This is really how they tried to start the game for Durant and to get him going in the game. Now we move to the second quarter. San Antonio's got their run, and it disappears. Now we end up into much more isolation. Perkins is not on the floor. He's trying to go one-on-one on Leonard. The defense suffocates onto him. He's not getting good looks out of that at all. And it's interesting to me that you'll see it again. He misses again here. Now the game's into this period of time where the game gets away from him early. Westbrook calls out the play. They swing to Durant. He's one-on-one on Leonard. Steps into the mid-range J again and misses. None of the pin-down action without Perkins on the floor. None of the same type of things. Here's a nice alley-oop backdoor. It's just to show it to you. It's not really relevant, frankly. But here's Durant on the far side with Danny Green. And he, just beats him on a basic. Nothing about that that's other than just great athleticism. And then that's the end of the quarter. So the game suddenly gets away from now we move to the third quarter. This game's just about over. Perkins is back in the game, but we're not. It's a slight pick and roll off off Collison. It gets him some action, but they go away from that pin down. The big guys get Durant free. That's why they play. So the problem is when you go small with Durant in the series, then which you kind of need to do to get Splitter and Duncan off the floor, then all of a sudden Durant doesn't have anyone to get him free the same way. Working high pick and roll here, letting him attack Splitter. Pretty darn good defensive play by Splitter and a pretty good shot by Durant. This is really where he got some of his late points that didn't have quite the same value. Though it's still a ball game. It's 12 points. It doesn't feel like it's totally over yet, though I think all of us kind of knew. Um, Here's early third again. They're going to set up. This is the same play that ran earlier. And instead of the pin down, it's off Collison, one-on-one action, fading into. I mean, that's what the Spurs want him to take all day. It's a little bit of a mystery to me of why they went away from it. And now all of a sudden we have a 20-point game. This thing's over. So it's interesting to see that they had a plan of what they were trying to do with Durant, and then they got away from it. All right, that wraps up. King Jackson's been sitting here in the bottom of our hangout for the last 2 days, and he left a note the other day on Google Plus that he's on his way to Kentucky and won't be able to join us. I just want to send him the best of luck and well wishes for he and his family in their move to the Commonwealth. John Calipari will be there for a few weeks before he heads to the Lakers, right? So enjoy yourself out there. Best of luck to you and your family. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. I will talk to you guys in June. A week from Monday. So be good, and if major story breaks, I'll do the best I can to get something out to you. But let's see what happens if something breaks here in the next 7 days. See ya.